If you have kids like I do, you already know that getting sick is basically guaranteed. It's not really a question of if it'll happen or even when, it's more like how many times this month. So here's what I personally take and what I don't bother with to help get me through cold and flu season. First up is vitamin D. It plays a number of roles in immune function. A large meta-analysis of randomized trials found a modest protective effect against respiratory infections, especially in people who were truly deficient at the start. However, more recent, bigger analyses that include newer trials have actually weakened the overall benefits. They say that there's no clear population-wide protection from routine vitamin D supplements. Still, there's a small potential benefit, but these results vary a lot between studies. By the way, I review a lot of supplements here, so subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated, and support me on Ko-fi if you enjoy the content. So yes, vitamin D isn't the strongest evidence-based tool for preventing colds or flus, but I take it anyway because it supports general health. And besides, living in Canada basically guarantees low vitamin D levels in the winter. Most people do well taking 1,000 to 2,000 IUs per day. One additional important point, vitamin D may slightly reduce your chances of getting a cold, but it doesn't help treat one. If you're already sick, it won't shorten the illness. Next is zinc, but specifically zinc lozenges, not just any zinc supplement. Zinc supports the immune system, but lozenges do something else. They coat the throat, which seems to directly interfere with the virus. This local effect appears to be why lozenges work better than swallowing a regular zinc pill. Multiple randomized control trials show that zinc lozenges can shorten the duration of a cold, but extremely high doses don't give extra benefit. On the other hand, regular oral zinc supplements like pills you swallow show mixed results and mostly help only in places where zinc deficiency is common, which isn't the case for most people in the US or Canada. As for intranasal zinc sprays, I would skip them entirely. They carry a real risk of permanently damaging your sense of smell, and the research doesn't show any advantage over lozenges anyways. So zinc lozenges or even a zinc tablet dissolved in water that you can sip throughout the day can help by keeping zinc in contact with your throat. I'd stick to around 50 milligrams of elemental zinc per day. Higher doses don't work better and can cause stomach issues. Unlike vitamin D, zinc doesn't prevent you from catching a cold in the first place, but it does help you get better faster. So zinc is best used once symptoms start, not before. Vitamin C is a tricky one for me. It's been studied for decades and a lot of people swear by it, but the overall research is pretty underwhelming. In well-nourished people, taking vitamin C every day doesn't really prevent colds, and it doesn't do much to treat them either. There are exceptions. In people under intense physical stress, marathon runners, military recruits, heavy training, vitamin C does seem to help with prevention. One large study on Korean army recruits found that taking 6 grams a day for a month reduced the chance of getting a cold by about 20%. But that's a very specific situation in a high-stress environment, not everyday life. When it comes to treating colds, a few small studies have suggested that very high doses might shorten symptoms a bit, but larger, better designed trials haven't confirmed that. So overall, vitamin C isn't a reliable cold treatment or prevention tool, but because it's cheap, easy to find, and relatively harmless, it's the first thing most people reach for when they get sick. For me, I still use it, not because I think it's a magic cure, but because I have young kids, and getting more than 5 hours of sleep is basically a fantasy. Chronic sleep deprivation definitely feels like a high-stress environment. So in that context, I figure vitamin C might give me a small edge. Probiotics are another thing I take during cold and flu season. Certain strains, especially lactobacillus and bifidobacterium, have shown protective effects against upper respiratory infections. A 2022 Cochrane review found that people taking probiotics regularly were less likely to catch a cold. In fact, only about 3/4 as many people got sick compared to placebo. Probiotics also slightly shortened how long colds lasted. The effects depend on the specific strains, but the overall evidence suggests that daily probiotics can reduce both the number of colds and how severe they feel. I think the research on probiotics for cold prevention and treatment is much stronger and more consistent than the research on vitamin C, especially for families with kids in daycare or school. The biggest downside is cost. A good multi-strain probiotic isn't cheap, and taking it every day through the winter adds up fast. If you're trying to give it to your kids as well, that's an even bigger expense. Because of that, a lot of people look to fermented foods as a budget-friendly alternative. Yogurt or kefir can help if they contain the right live cultures like lactobacillus or bifidobacterium. Kefir naturally has several beneficial strains, so it's often a good choice. But many fermented foods don't contain these strains at all, and regular yogurt without added cultures won't offer the same immune benefits. Honey is another great bonus remedy worth mentioning for colds and flus. A meta-analysis found that honey actually outperforms standard care for easing upper respiratory symptoms, making it an inexpensive and widely available alternative to antibiotics in many situations. For children over 1 year old, the evidence is pretty solid. Honey can reduce how often and how severely they cough, and it can even help them sleep better. In adults, the research is a bit more mixed, but still encouraging, showing that honey may help some cold symptoms. Personally, I use honey for my kids, especially when they complain of a sore throat. Part of the reason is because honey genuinely soothes their throat, and part of it is that sometimes kids just want something comforting to help them feel better, even if the benefit is partially placebo. Honey fits the bill perfectly. It's safe, effective, and tastes great. When choosing honey for sore throats, the specific variety, whether wildflower, manuka, or buckwheat, matters less than simply using a real, minimally processed honey. Aim for raw honey when you can. Avoid imitation syrups or heavily pasteurized products. Now let's talk about a few supplements I don't take, some of which surprise people because yes, there's some evidence behind them. First up is echinacea. Some studies have suggested that echinacea can reduce the number of colds you get or make them a bit shorter. But when larger, better designed trials were done, the effects mostly disappeared or weren't statistically significant. Different species, different doses, different formulas, all that makes the results really inconsistent. My take is that echinacea might help a little, but the evidence is all over the place. The bigger reason I don't use it is simple. Echinacea doesn't really benefit my body in any meaningful way outside of colds and flus. Let me explain. I take vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc even though their cold-fighting abilities aren't amazing, but they still serve useful roles elsewhere in the body. On days where I barely eat a real meal, end up eating way too much of my kids' snacks, get way too little sleep, or stay up working late, those nutrients support other things like metabolism, skin health, cognitive function, and cardiovascular health. So even if they don't prevent my cold, at least my body can put them to use. Echinacea doesn't really offer that. It isn't a nutrient. It's a herb used almost exclusively for immune support. My body doesn't need echinacea for anything else, and it doesn't provide vitamins or minerals I'm missing. That's why I skip it. Not because it absolutely doesn't work, but because when it does work, it doesn't offer much beyond a mild immune boost. I feel the same way about elderberry supplements and syrups. Some small studies suggest elderberry might shorten colds or flus by a day or so, but the research is limited and not very high quality. Here's my approach, and this is coming from a naturopathic doctor. When I'm really sick, I reach for over-the-counter medications like Tylenol, cold and flu, or Dayquil and NyQuil. In my experience, those reliably suppress symptoms enough that I can function almost right away. Herbal remedies, echinacea, elderberry, just don't provide that kind of immediate relief. When it's 3 a.m., your head is pounding, you're coughing nonstop, and you need to get your kids to school at 7 a.m. before heading to work, a strong dose of NyQuil is going to help you sleep way more than an echinacea tincture ever will. Many patients ask whether there's a natural alternative to medication, and I wish I could give them a better answer. After years of research and clinical practice, I can honestly say there isn't a single supplement, herb, or functional food that can fully replace conventional medicine. I've dug into the science behind just about everything, everything: bovine colostrum, mushrooms, propolis, and while a few show early or very modest benefits, most lack strong evidence or only help specific groups of people with specific conditions. They're often pricey too, and for me personally, I need something that works quickly because I can't afford to be out of commission. That's why my approach to colds and flus is more realistic and practical, even if it's not flashy. I stick to supplements that support overall immunity and general health, vitamin D and probiotics before I get sick, and then vitamin C and zinc once symptoms show up. They're not miracle cures, but they can give your immune system a gentle boost while offering other health benefits too. Natural options can absolutely help. You just shouldn't expect them to erase symptoms overnight. Your body still needs a couple of days to fight things off, and during that time, you're probably going to feel lousy and want nothing more than to rest. And let's be honest, when you're juggling kids or a busy schedule, taking even one day to slow down can feel nearly impossible. Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Yeung. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share them in the comments down below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you know someone who could benefit from this, please share it with them. Finally, if you enjoy what we do and want to learn more, consider supporting us on Ko-fi, and be sure to check out our other socials as well.